What would you say is your favorite aspect of the Soulsborne games? The incredibly tough but engaging and fun boss fights? The beautifully crafted and rewarding to explore levels? Well, all of these are great, but I think an aspect of these games that is sometimes overlooked is the level of mastery that they offer. The Souls games are very difficult, no doubt about it, and beating one is almost a rite of passage that you as a player have managed to persevere through adversity and come out a better, more skilled person. But there is a much higher ceiling of competency than simply beating a Souls game. So join me as we take a look at the 6 stages of a Souls player. Grab your Estus and let's get into it. The first stage is the noob. And this is the most self-explanatory of all the stages. You have just made your first steps into your first Soulsborne game. Oh yeah, this is gonna be good. The noob is someone who gets into these games completely blind with no prior experience with Souls or Souls-likes. You're probably tired of that friend badgering you about how quote-unquote these games changed his life, or how the reviewers and critics keep thinking that Elden Ring is the best thing since the discovery of fire. So you think, alright, let's give it a shot. The noob will die a lot in their first game. Even bosses considered easy by the standards of the Soulsborne community might give you a really hard time. I personally died to Vort over 20 times on my first ever playthrough of Dark Souls 3. Yeah, it took me a while to get good at these games. You will make pretty much every mistake in the book. Have a ton of souls but forget to level up before going to the boss? Check. Spreading out your stats instead of focusing on specific builds? Check. Talking to NPCs only once? Check. Getting caught by mimics? Check. This is a time of exploration and discovery. You've probably heard how these games are quote-unquote challenging but fair, and are probably considering rushing to Reddit to post about how bullshit that statement is. You will have to deal with a great level of frustration, despair, but also elation and triumph after you manage to beat that boss that took you so many tries. It is truly a magical time. This stage is also probably the most pivotal point regarding your Souls journey. Many people will remain at this stage forever, as they have neither the patience, time, nor desire to bang their heads against the wall until they emerge victorious, and that's totally fine. What's not fine is complaining all the time about how these games quote-unquote need difficulty options. Just go play something else, dude, Jesus. But if you decide to persevere and not give up on the face of adversity, then you will eventually move on to the next stage. Stage 2. Average. Now, don't let the word average fool you. Being an average Souls player is still a commendable achievement. Again, these games are tough. In my opinion, a player reaches the average stage when they finish their first playthrough in their first Soulsborne game. Congratulations. There's still a long road ahead if you wanna follow it, but for now, breathe a sigh of relief. You did it, champ. By the average stage, you'll start to get the hang of the more surface level mechanics of these games. You understand that it's better to focus on one broad style of play and by extension allocate your stats wisely. You start to pay more attention to each boss's individual movesets and thus react more efficiently and with less wasted moves, although panic rolling is still going to take a while to fix. You remember to visit checkpoints often, maybe even keep some consumable currencies around, just in case you need a few more souls for that extra level. In general, you're starting to get more familiar with these games. You're still not at a level that you're considered legitimately good, but you're getting there. Back in the olden days, it used to be that beating a Soulsborne game was somewhat of a rite of passage. This was before Elden Ring popularized the subgenre and pushed it into the mainstream. The games were much more niche at that time, so beating one offered more prestige. Nowadays, a lot more people have been in Elden Ring at least, so the achievement has lost some of its luster, but it's still something to be proud of. It's also at this point that I think the biggest drop-off in players happens. Many people at this stage will simply put down the controller, take a sigh of contentment and relaxation, and move on with their lives as slightly better and more accomplished people. Sure, they might check out the new Soulsborne game when it eventually arrives and might even beat it, but that's the extent of their involvement in these types of games. They simply have no desire to move further, and that is perfectly fine. But if you want to take things a step further, then we move on to the next stage. Stage 3. Competent. This stage marks the transitional area between a casual Souls player
it's alright,
and a dedicated fan.
Wow.
It's at this stage that you're probably starting to consider yourself an honest-to-goodness Soulsborne fan. Having already beaten your first Soulsborne game, you decide to press on and experience more of what this franchise has to offer you. It's also at this point that you're probably considering playing other Souls games or doing more runs of the game that you already have. You have also reached a point in your journey when you can consider yourself to be genuinely good at these types of games. Not great, but good. back when the phrase "get good" wasn't so lame to use, this stage is what it would be referring to. At this point, you haven't just gotten the grip of the basic mechanics, but also more advanced stuff. You're getting into build crafting, you're learning proper stamina management and positioning to minimize stamina cost, how to bait certain attacks. Overall, you're starting to really appreciate the depth of mastery that these games have to offer. Something odd also happens at this point. You might start to play a Souls game just to relax. What was once a grueling experience that you had to persevere through has now become familiar, easy even. Bosses that were giving you a hard time before now only take a couple tries at most. You can do runs of a game while having something else playing in the background. A good, but completely arbitrary measure of a competent player that I just pulled out of my ass is the skill to beat Elden Ring on a fresh run without using any summons or broken builds or weapons. I know it sounds silly and arbitrary, but Elden Ring is designed with the use of its more powerful tools, so beating it without using them is actually very challenging. Now, it's also at this point that you're getting more invested into the franchise as a whole. You may start following news and announcements, and when a new Soulsborne game or even Souls-like is released, you're all in and there to play. Welcome to the community of dedicated Souls fans. Say goodbye to the outside world. It's better in here anyway. Hey guys, Strength Gamer from the future here. So from this point onwards, I'm gonna start using clips from various YouTubers and content creators and streamers. And obviously I'm going to be including sources from each of the players' clips that I'm going to be using. All these clips are to highlight the topic that I'm discussing. And if I'm using a clip of a particular creator in the particular stage of player, it does not mean that I'm categorizing them onto that stage. This is not a player ranking video. And I thought I'd make it clear here just to avoid any sort of, backlash or confusion that, oh, you put, X player on this stage, he or she should be higher. No, it's not about that. It's just highlighting some of the topics that I'm discussing, obviously because I haven't done all of the challenges that I'm going to be mentioning in this video. So yeah, I just thought I'd clarify that. And a huge thanks to all of the creators and players whose clips I used. All right, back to the video. Stage 4, the veteran. Now by this point, your skill in these games is undeniable. A veteran player has probably beaten most, if not all, the Soulsborne games. You are no longer just a fan of the Soulsborne games, the Soulsborne games are probably your preferred and main type of game. No tough bosses and punishing death penalties in your game? Thanks, but no thanks. In fact, when your friends think of the Souls games, an image of your face probably pops up into their heads. At the veteran stage, save for your first playthroughs, the Souls games no longer offer the challenge required to effectively engage you. At least, not in their base state. You need something with a bit more oomph. This is where challenge runs come into the mix. The veteran player is a player that has already learned these games so well, they start dabbling into how to make them even harder for themselves. It's at this point that you'll start to consider some of the non-insane challenge runs, like single attribute runs, level 1 runs, maybe deathless runs, perhaps even a little bit of lower tier speedrunning. I'd say that a reasonable test of skill of someone who wants to breach this stage is completing either a level 1 run or a deathless run. Naturally, the amount of people that reach the veteran stage is fairly small, as it probably means focusing heavily on the Soulsborne games. Not exclusively, but a fair amount. Also, from here on out, you actually have to put in some dedicated effort to move further up. See, progressing from noob to average and then to competent and hell, even to veteran, this is a process that can happen mostly naturally. With a bit of research and lots of practice, especially when you want to get into the challenge runs, and lots of time spent playing, in my opinion, a person can reach the veteran rank. Also, if you were wondering, this is where I consider myself to be. But to move up further to the higher ranks of the veteran stage, if you will, and even further beyond to the next stages, you can't just play the game normally. You will have to devote yourself to both research and specific practice to go further. But if you're up for it, then you can reach the 5th stage. Stage 5. Elite. Is the smell of freshly cut grass, the sound of the wind bustling through the trees, and the invigorating feeling of cool mountain air coursing through your lungs not for you? If so, you might just be able to reach the elite stage of the Souls player. At this point, you're close to milking these games for all they're worth. It should go without saying that only the cream of the crop of all Soulsborne players will ever reach this point. Now, originally I was going to categorize the player base into 5 stages instead of 6, but I decided that there was enough distinction between the elite stage to warrant a separate final stage. Both the elite stage and the final stage are what I consider to be the quote-unquote pro level stages. Meaning that there's really no good reason for anybody to ever reach this point without at least making some money off of it. Even if you don't reach this stage with the expectation of financial gain, hey, there's nothing wrong with making something out of it, right? So what is the elite stage? Well, it's pretty much the veteran stage but on steroids. At this point you are so good at these games that challenge runs start feeling a bit too easy for you. No. You chew on rocks and go diving at the Bermuda Triangle in the middle of January. Level 1 runs? Done one on every game. Deathless runs? You mean a Tuesday? Now, at this stage you're doubling into some hardcore shit. Hitless runs, competitive speedrunning, level 1 runs on New Game Plus 7, other weird ass shit like beating Elden Ring with your nose or something. Yeah, like I said, elite level players are the cream of the crop. You are likely either a streamer or a content creator, and if you're not, dude, you should really consider it. It's also at this point where you see more differentiation between the types of players. Here's what I mean. An average Souls player is more skilled than a new player across the board. Same with a competent player compared to an average player, and the same with a veteran player compared to a competent player. But an elite player might be similar or slightly better than a veteran player on most aspects, but also much better in a specific type of challenge, like hitless runs or speedruns. To be really good at something, you need to focus, so elite level players can have quote-unquote specialization. Some might be competent speedrunners, others might focus more on level 1 deathless runs, and so forth. Of course, some players double onto everything, but usually you're gonna be great at one thing and good at the rest. This is the highest stage most players could theoretically go. Naturally, most players will never get anywhere near this point because, well, they got other stuff to do, honestly. But the 6th and final stage is beyond almost anyone's grasp. Stage 6. God. The players at this stage are basically the top tier players of the elite stage, so the best of the already best of the best. Now, it is my sincere belief that anybody could reach the elite stage if they really wanted to. Naturally, it would take hours upon hours of dedicated practice, as well as research for months or years to get to that point. So, of course, the vast majority of people would never even bother to do so, or even have the opportunity to do so. Still, I think it is within the capabilities of almost everyone to reach the elite stage. But, as is the case for any profession, skill, or sport, to be the absolute best of the best, you need more than just hard work and dedication. The best of the best have everything it takes. Aspects they can control, like effort, dedication, and patience, as well as aspects they can't control, like natural talent and the circumstances that allow that talent to flourish, like living in their parents' basements, for example. In short, it's just not feasible for the majority of people to be the best of the best. They can be very competent, perhaps even elite, but the god level players have risen even beyond that point. In this stage, we're talking about the most insane challenges done at the highest level. Top tier speedrunning, consecutive no-hit runs, and yes, this includes the all-coveted god runs. Which means beating all the Souls games back to back without ever getting hit once. Naturally, only a handful of people from all over the world belong to this stage, and it's highly likely that none of us will be able to reach it. But hey, won't know until you try, right? So these were the 6 stages of a Souls player. And as always, I'd like to hear your own takes. Which stage would you put yourself at? Do you agree with my categorization? Would you add or remove stages? Let me know down in the old comment section. You might also be wondering why PvP wasn't mentioned. Well, it's because in my mind, Souls PvP exists in its own sphere, separate from the PvE side. So someone could be a top tier PvP player, but only competent in PvE, or vice versa. If you want me to make a PvP version of this video, do let me know. As always, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.